Audio check. 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. Hello, test, test. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you count to 5?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, perfect. Nice and clear. Thank you. Good. Mute me? Yeah. Hello, Miss Cunningham.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm
Great.
going to go ahead and get the meeting started shortly. When you're not speaking, if we can ask you to mute your mic, it looks like you're already on top of it, though.
Yep, will do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hello, this is Peter with the Menifee IT department. Ambarish, can you confirm you're hearing us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Okay, perfect.
Will we be on when if we are called in, will be on the camera?
If you choose to be, we can take your feed if you'd like. Otherwise, if you just want your voice sent over, that's okay too.
Yeah, I can be on the camera. I haven't yet let me turn on my camera. Can you see me okay?
Yes, I can see you. So when you are speaking, we will take that feed. Just to let you know, when you do come up, you will see yourself on the program feed, but rest assured we are seeing you. So that'll happen.
Okay.
And then obviously when you're not speaking, please mute. But it looks like you're already on top of that. So
Yeah. I'll keep everything muted and turned off unless I'm called in.
very good. Yeah, so we'll get the meeting
Yeah.
started shortly.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it got quiet in here. Are we about ready to start? Okay, it is 6 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Commissioner Diedrich,
Here.
Commissioner Long, Commissioner Madrid,
Here.
Vice Chair Thomas,
Here.
Chair Ledoux.
And I am here too. Thank you. Orlando, would you mind leading us in the pledge tonight?
Absolutely. If we can all stand, please. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right. First things first, it's one of the first meetings of the year where we typically potentially reshuffle the chair and vice chair positions. So the first item on our list is to ask if there's any discussion for nomination of chair first. Is there any discussion?
I think
Please,
you've done.
somebody
I
discuss.
think you've done a great job this last year, Chair.
Yes.
I don't know if there's interest in keeping you on as chair again for this upcoming year.
Well, thank you for that. This is a great honor for me. I love doing it, and I would be honored if that's what you guys want. So.
I would support you continuing in that position. Yes.
Really? Wow.
I know that's a
And-
big shock.
Well, I'm humbled.
And I'm so happy working with you. So please continue.
Well, thank you. Okay. Well, is there a motion and a second?
So may I
for that?
have the honor to nominate you as chair?
Thank you, sir.
And I'd like to ask to nominate Ben Dietrich as vice chair.
We'll do that next. We gotta.
We'll
yeah, we
scratch
gotta
that
go.
then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do we have a second for me as remaining the chair?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, vice chair, do we have any discussion on the vice chair?
I forgot.
Personally, I know Ben's done the chair before, and
Yeah.
he'd be a great vice chair. So, I would like to nominate Ben as the vice chair. If anybody else would like to second that. Okay. Any other discussion on the vice chair? Okay. All right. All in favor of Ben being the vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There we go. So if it's acceptable by all commissioners, we'll make this change starting next week. We'll keep our
Yeah.
seats tonight.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Yes.
Did I kind of blow that and not do the electronic vote? Are we okay?
No, we're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, no presentations tonight. We'll talk about the agenda approval or modifications. Are there any modifications to tonight's agenda?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, I'm asking for your approval of tonight's agenda. All in favor? Please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to public comments, and this is public comments for items that are not on tonight's agenda. Do we have, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments for things that are not on tonight's agenda?
We do not.
Okay, great, thank you. I wonder what everyone's here for then. All right. Approval of the minutes. I'd like to ask the Planning Commission for approval of the December 13th, 2023 minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Nothing on our consent calendar, so we'll move right into item number 10, public hearing items. This is the Menifee Valley Specific Plan. Could the Deputy Community Development Director please introduce this item?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Just a couple comments before I introduce Ryan to make the presentation. Obviously, this is a pretty significant project. There are a lot of cities out there that don't have the opportunity to process something like this, and it's a project that has been in the works for 2.5 years now. So that tells you how big of a project it is, how extensive it was, and how much of back and forth we had to do with the applicant. So I do want to introduce Ryan to do the presentation. He was the lead and did an exceptional job working with the applicant. So, Ryan?
Good evening, Commission, members of the public. I'm Ryan Fowler, Principal Planner, here to introduce the Menifee Valley Specific Plan. It has 6 entitlements as part of this project: a general plan amendment, a change of zone, a specific plan amendment, its own specific plan, and a tentative track map, and finally a development agreement. The project site is shown with the red dotted line. It's located within the approved Menifee Valley Ranch Specific Plan, also known as Specific Plan 301. It's located on the north side of the BNSF rail corridor. On the west boundary is Menifee Road. On the east boundary is Briggs Road. And to the north is State Route 74. Both the zoning and the general plan for the site is that Menifee Valley Ranch specific plan, and they're proposing to change that to Menifee Valley, so cutting out the ranch specific plan. So just a brief project description. So I'll go through each one of those 6 entitlements. First, the general plan amendment. The reason for that is they're changing the land use designation on the city's land use map to that Menifee Valley specific plan. And then there's a specific plan amendment. Basically, that cuts out the project site from the Menifee Valley Ranch specific plan. And then we're changing the zone of the project site from that previous specific plan, Menifee Valley Ranch, to Menifee Valley. And then now there's going to be a standalone, its own specific plan for this project site. Also, there's a tentative track map. It's an 11-lot subdivision. It's going to be used for parcelizing the site, conveying those various parcels to the different entities within Brookfield, and then for mass grading for the site as well. And then lastly, development agreement is included here. It identifies the applicant's obligations, outlines terms and commitments associated with this SP approval. Just a little bit of background. So this goes all the way back to 1997. That was when the county approved the specific plan for the larger specific plan, the Menifee Valley Ranch. And then during the county days, when this was part of the county, 2 track maps were approved, 31811 and 31812, had 559 in the upper tract map, and then 737 single-family dwelling units, 6 triplex development lots, and a golf course in the southerly tract. And those, after we became a city, those maps expired. And then the applicant came in with a specific plan application in 2018. That did not include any of the industrial or commercial that you'll see tonight. Later versions did include some retail, civic uses, but ultimately it was withdrawn and replaced with the application in the version you're going to see tonight. So it's a little bit of research. The city went out to do a site visit, or do a tour of the Ontario Ranch Master Plan Development in Ontario, California. It was a master plan community, but Brookfield, and they had very similar elements to the project that's before you. They had the master plan residential communities with the amenities, pools, clubhouses, and also some commercial uses in there as well. But before that, there was, in July 2019, the Planning Commission established the ad hoc committee. Commissioner Madrid and Thomas toured the Brookfield's New Haven communities in Ontario and viewed some housing that was similar in type and design to what was intended for this site. So going into now our current application. So it was submitted in June 2021, and initially, you'll see on the left, this was the original. So they came in, and it was envisioned just completely as business park. The city expressed they were looking for something different, and so other uses were introduced, and it kind of evolved. So this is more to show you the evolution of the current plan. Residential was put in there along Briggs, and then little by little things changed. There was a school added within the heart of the residential, commercial retail along Highway 74, and then you see on the southwest corner, a public facilities land planning area was eventually added. and a paseo strip kind of buffering the southerly edge. So this is the plan that's before you tonight. This is the land use plan for our new Menifee Valley specific plan. It's 590 acres. It has 13 planning areas. It has a maximum residential count of 1,718 dwelling units in the south and the east, mainly along Briggs. And the reason for that number is under the previous specific plan, it would have allowed for 1,718 dwelling units. So in order to have no net loss, we had to maintain that same number. That's state law. Also, this plan introduces business park, commercial business park, and commercial uses in the north and the west that would access Highway 74 and Menifee Road. There's also small incubator spaces within planning area 13. Commercial retail would be the planning area 13 east of Malaga. There's also multifamily and agribusiness uses proposed within the southerly part, south of the high school. As I mentioned before, elementary school, green belts, trails, bike lanes, and routes throughout the site, looping throughout. That same civic node that I mentioned before in the southwest corner, planning area 9. McLaughlin Road connects from east to west. It's a general plan road. However, the trucks that would access McLaughlin Road are not allowed to enter through the residential, and I'll talk a little bit further about that and how that's achieved in later slides. And then there's a sports park in 7A. You have a sports park, an aquatic center, and that is open to the public. There's also a non-vehicular bridge that would connect this project site with the Heritage Lake to the south. Improvements along the entire frontage of the site, and then a separate set of off-site improvements. And so we'll get into more of the details in future slides. So as I mentioned, it includes a specific plan document. That's what's in your staff report package, and that's really comprised of 7 sections. The intro, which basically states the objective and purpose of the specific plan. Then you have your land use plan, your mobility and infrastructure plans. The specific plan sets certain development standards for each planning area. Then you have one theme of landscape standards, architectural guidelines for the different planning areas, so it all kind of blends and complements each other. And then an administrative and implementation section. The specific plan states its objectives. First and foremost, it implements the general plan. Then it also provides for a contemporary mixed-use community that's going to balance the housing needs and community amenities with job-producing businesses. It locates those businesses along the State Route 74 and Menifee Road, and it designs the business so they can prosper and attract economic investments. That's the stated objective. It also concentrates that residential, as I mentioned before, in the southeast, and includes supportive uses. And it physically separates and does not commingle the residential and the business park uses. It provides that public facility, planning area 9, and a convenient location next to the BNSF rail corridor and Menifee Road. It also preserves Granite Hill, which I will show in a later slide. It has a comprehensive circulation network, infrastructure improvements for the community, and it provides for a cohesive architectural landscape theme throughout. So here you see an illustrative site plan. This is really conceptual only, so we're not approving tonight any buildings or homes or building footprints. This is really used as more of a test case. We asked initially, this exhibit was not contained in the specific plan, but we asked the applicant to please provide it so that we could see some sort of test case of how the specific plan would look in the real world. And it was really used to see whether the development standards, the uses, the different planning areas, configurations all work together. Next is circulation. So I mentioned frontage improvements all along the Briggs, Menifee, and Highway 74 would occur. Within the residential portion of the site, they'll have the traditional residential streets, ease of access for the business and commerce off of Highway 74 and Menifee Road. And then at the top of the Spine Road, which is the orange curvilinear that goes north-south through the residential, at the top of that, at McLaughlin Road, you're going to have a roundabout that's going to prohibit trucks traveling eastward, so it effectively prohibit those from traveling within the residential neighborhood. And then the residential Spine Road would connect, its really its purpose is to connect the school, the private recreational amenities, as well as the sports park to all the residents within the project site. And I mentioned a set of off-site improvements. So in purple, you'll see the project is conditioned to supply a connection to 215, and so they're going to extend what McLaughlin Road, currently it doesn't exist, so they will extend McLaughlin, connect to Matthews Case, and then improve Matthews Case up to Ethonac Road. And similarly, they're going to make improvements to ultimate of McCall Boulevard from Menifee Road to Encanto Drive.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Can I ask you a question about that? If you go back one slide. The purple line on McCall, they're making improvements along McCall there, but are we going to be utilizing McCall for access to this project?
Commissioner, or Chair, passenger vehicles will be using McCall to access this site. No truck traffic will be used to access this site through McCall.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
And then the specific plan contains a pedestrian mobility plan, as you see here on the left. It includes green belts, sidewalks, bike lanes, routes, trails, and it connects and loops throughout the specific plan area. That also includes the pedestrian bridge, as you see the orange kind of square at the southerly boundary, and that would connect the two communities of Heritage Lake and this Menifee Valley specific plan. There is existing bus service on Highway 74, and when Planning Area 13, an implementing project is proposed, a bus turnout would be located there. Here's a rendering of the pedestrian bridge and how that would look. Basically, it's going to fly over the BNSF rail corridor and serves to connect those two communities. And it was placed in its location, as you saw it on the previous slide, essentially to connect the two parks. So connect this proposed park with the existing sports park in Heritage Lake. Next is that Planning Area 9, that civic node that I mentioned. It's 5.3 acres, large enough to accommodate a city fire station as well as another public facility such as a future transit stop or parking ride, since it's along the rail corridor. So the applicant, as part of that tentative track map, will be mass grading the site, and so they will grade this particular area. They will dedicate to the city the parcel and deliver the infrastructure, they'll stub out the infrastructure to the site, as well as doing the frontage improvements. So within this plan, I mentioned before, is an agri-commercial area, and that's really envisioned for south of the high school, although it could be allowed in Planning Area 5, 12, or 13. And it's really an urban, small-scale agricultural activities would be located there, and they'd be focused on crops and animal husbandry. The architectural guidelines within the specific plan call for it to complement the past historical barns and support structures of Menifee Valley, with, of course, some contemporary adaptations. Now, there is a private recreational facility that's in Planning Area 2, so it's along that residential Spine Road on the west side that you saw, kind of above the sports park. That would be HOA maintained for the residents. It would include amenities such as tot lot, open lawn, swimming pool, shade structure, restrooms, and colorful blooming landscaping. And then the sports park. The sports park would be 16.9 acres. It's located in that southeast corner of the site in planning area 7A. You can see from the image as 3 ball fields, 2 Little League fields, and 1 regular sized ball field. Pickleball courts below the larger ball field, tennis courts. And then in the middle, sensory garden and adventure playground for younger age children, as well as concession stands. And then there's an aquatic facility, so that would include a junior Olympic pool, splash pad, concessions, restrooms, and shade structures. And then one of the focuses of the specific plan and some of the comments by staff was how this would look on its edge conditions or between 2 different types of land uses, the business park next to the residential. How would that look? So throughout the specific plan, there's a number of cross sections with development standards, with specifics on how those interactions would take place. So this particular one, one of the more salient ones, is the paseo along the southerly edge of the project, between planning area 10, which is Business Park, and the existing residents to the south within Heritage Lake. So there is that strip of green you see. It's planning area 8. It includes 13.1 acres of green belts and trails. It has a multi-use trail and landscaping that would serve as a visual buffer between Heritage Lake and the Business Park Planning Area 10. And the guidelines specify that planning area 10 either needs to be sunken down, graded down so that it sets lower, so it's even more visually shielded, or there needs to be an earthen berm within this planning area 8B that would visually shield it. Next is the interaction between the high school and planning areas 13 or 12. They're both along that edge. They would be, first off, the high school on that side, adjacent to our project site, has the athletic field. So that kind of separates it a little bit more from the actual high school. And then from the PL, you see the PL there, high school's on the right. On the left is a landscape buffer that's required to be 86 feet minimum with tightly spaced evergreen trees. There'll be a solid decorative wall within that. And then within the development standards of the specific plan, there's a 100-foot separation between any truck court or building face and the high school property. And then there's also a requirement that no loading docks face the high school. I mentioned Granite Hill. That's the point at the southeast corner of the site. It has topography and some environmentally sensitive areas within it, so that's why there's a specific planning area that sets it aside and preserves it. So there'll be no development within that, no fuel modification within that, and there will be some passive trails and signage that essentially keeps the hikers on the trail. The school is within the center or the heart of the residential neighborhood. It's currently shown as within planning area 6. It's 12 net acres. The applicant worked with the Romaland School District in this proposal. And although it's shown in planning area 6, it could really be located anywhere within the residential neighborhood, but they would work with the Romaland and City of Menifee on the final location and configuration of that. This slide shows the specific plan design guidelines for the entry monumentation. So in the upper right, you have the primary entries to 3 options for primary entries to the residential neighborhoods. And then they could also have secondary monuments on more of the secondary streets into the residential. And then lower right, you have the monumentation for the commercial and business park areas. So that would occur at McLaughlin and Menifee and 74 and Malaga. Next, the specific plan contains examples of the level of quality that the city would be looking for that we find acceptable when future implementing projects come in. So first is the residential. So within the section that relates to that in the specific plan, these are the images that are shown. It gives you an idea of what would be expected in the specific plan. And this is the same, but for the industrial. And for the commercial. So the commercial really harkens back to the agrarian, but with some minor, some contemporary adaptations to it. The specific plan also contains a phasing plan. Now, this is conceptual in nature, but it illustrates the intent of kind of what would go first. We're looking at planning areas 11 and 12, along with the southerly, southeasterly portion of the residential going in phase 1. And then planning area 10, the public facilities, the remainder of the residential going within phase 2. And then phase 3 really being the commercial retail along the northerly boundary and the pedestrian bridge. Now this shows conceptual phasing, but you could have a building within, say, planning area 11, phase 1, going simultaneously with phase 2 projects, say planning area 4. Really, when those projects come in, they have to demonstrate that based on the menu of ultimate improvements that are required for the entire project, which ones do they trigger? They would have to show that analysis to then build those that they would trigger. In addition, the development agreement gets more specific in terms of when amenities and improvements are due. I mentioned there's a tentative track map within this entire project application. Has 11 lots. Really, this is going to serve for the mass grading of the site, and these lot lines conform to the planning areas within the specific plan. They lump all the residential together, but the lines essentially conform to those planning areas. And then the development agreement. There's a lot of text here, but it's important to walk through some of the terms and some of the highlights, some of the benefits of that development agreement. First, it's a 15-year agreement with option for 5 additional years based on subject to completion of those 75,000 square feet of commercial retail. The diffs are not frozen, but they will get credit for construction of public infrastructure. The public facility site, as I mentioned before, will be dedicated with a pad and utilities stubbed out and frontage improvements completed. And then in addition to that, the applicant is contributing $10 million cash contribution towards the future fire station. That's to be made in 2 payments, but really the intent is to have that constructed and completed prior to the first occupancy. And then the sports park, aquatic center, which we showed, the plot plan for that would be completed within 6 months of whatever tentative track map creates that park lot of a future implementing project. The construction drawings would be due prior to the first residential occupancy. Sorry, their approval would be due. And then they would get park diff credits for construction of that. And the DEA specifies that it would be open to the public prior to the 250th residential occupancy. As far as the pedestrian bridge, drawings approval prior to the first occupancy and completion prior to the 250th permit. I think that should be occupancy. I'm sorry about that. And then exception for outside agencies for approval with $3.9 million to McCall Boulevard improvements if that is necessary based on those outside agency approvals.
Could you explain that? I don't quite understand what that means, exception to outside agency approval.
Commissioner, yes. So that bridge will need permits and approvals from RCTC to cross over the rail line. It will need a concurrence from Valleywide because the landing of the other side of the bridge is in a Valleywide park. So Every effort will be made to ensure that it is pursued diligently, and should there be a reason where that bridge could not be constructed for compliance issues, we can't get agreement from those other agencies or we can't get permits, the value of that bridge would not be lost per the development agreement. The value, that cash value, would go towards the reimbursement of the excess contributions as part of the McCall improvements that the developer will be constructed.
If we get the PowerPoint back up. There we go. As far as the Paseo timing, that will include that Class 1 bike pedestrian trail along the southerly boundary. That's due prior to the first occupancy for any of those southerly planning areas, so planning area 1, 2, 9, or 10. And then the balance, the landscaping within planning area 8B, which is kind of the northwest half of that buffer, prior to release of the first permit issuance of any non-residential building within 600 feet of nearest residential unit to the south, and first occupancy in planning area 10. And then the private rec center clubhouse prior to the first residential occupancy. And then really the city is intent on getting advanced completion of some of the retail along Highway 74. So within that DA, it calls for the advanced completion of a minimum of 34,500 square feet of that. And where they got that number from is 30% of the anticipated retail commercial, anticipated to be as a food hall concept up in that planning area 13. As far as subsequent approvals, if an implementing project comes in and it is consistent with the specific plan, it could be approved administratively. However, there would be no administrative approvals if there's any variances, conditional use permits, or additional CEQA documentation. And then it gives the city manager and community development director discretion to take a implementing project to PC if warranted. And so what could be approved administratively, you're looking at like your residential track maps, commercial plot plans, or industrial plot plans that fall within these square footages within the different planning areas mentioned in this slide. There will also be transportation improvement. There are transportation improvement provisions in the DA, McCall Boulevard's offsite improvements. So the way that works is the applicant is going to construct that McCall Boulevard. However, their fair share for their trips onto McCall only amounts to 36% or 37%. So they would get reimbursed for the kind of the remaining 63% of their actual cost of construction. And that would be paid through either TUMF, CFD, funds from the battery energy storage system, benefit agreement, or general funds within 3 years of completion. Timing of the frontage and offsite improvements, that's spelled out in the DA, and then the city agrees to assist with eminent domain when necessary, only on general plan designated roadways. And then diff credit reimbursements are spelled out up to the max paid by the developer. And then fair shares are also listed in what the responsibilities of the applicant are in terms of fair share. They're listed in the DA, and that's per the traffic impact analysis, and it amounts to more than $4.7 million. So this project, part of your actions tonight will be whether to recommend to certify an EIR. Back in spring of 2022, there was a notice of preparation sent out for the EIR, and the city conducted a scoping meeting here in March of 2022. We then prepared the EIR with the help of CEQA consultant, and there's mitigation within that EIR in the different impact categories that you see here: air quality, biology, cultural, GHG, hazards, land use and planning, noise and vibrations, tribal cultural resources, and transportation. Within the EIR, there are 4 areas that had significant and unavoidable impacts. They relate to air quality and GHG. For those, it's really long-term operational emissions exceed the SCA QMD thresholds. Now there's mitigation in both of those areas in the EIR. However, because there's not enough information, because we're at more of the specific plan level, those actual reductions can't be quantified. That's why we cannot say that it can be brought down to a less than significant level, but all feasible mitigation is included. And then land use and planning, and really that relates to one particular general plan policy. It's policy C1.2, and that relates to the city's level of service goals. And because there are some existing and forecasted operational deficiencies that can't be fully improved to meet the desired LOS, that is a significant and unavoidable. So in the other section, transportation of the EIR, kind of that same impact is identified. And then lastly, vehicle miles traveled, VMTs. The applicant, as part of their mitigation, is required to prepare a transportation demand management strategy, which would reduce VMT, but even with that, it cannot be guaranteed to reduce VMT per employee and retail components, total VMT to a less than significant level. But part of the resolution for the EIR is that there's a findings and statement of overriding consideration. So because of those significant and unavoidable impacts, the city would be required to adopt a statement of overriding consideration. And in that, basically it lists out that the benefits outweigh those environmental impacts. So some of these benefits listed in those findings are that it's employment generating. Circulation and mobility improvements would occur with this project. It would expedite goods delivery, and create infrastructure to spur growth and investment and improve quality of life kind of throughout the vicinity of the project. Sales and property taxes would increase, as well as there'd be payment of TUMF and DIF fees. There would be sustainable development as part of this project, and it would supply additional housing opportunities within the city. Provides that incubator space within that planning area 13. The community farm, which would be located on the south, just to the south of that high school, of Heritage High School, and valued at $3 million. There's the retail that would be included along Highway 74, the community park, the aquatic center, the trails. There's also a public benefit that goes beyond what they would otherwise be approved in the amount of $37 million. And that's from all the infrastructure improvements that they're creating beyond what would otherwise be required. They had the fair share payments of $4.7 million, and then the net fiscal benefit per year, on a per year basis, would be $1 million that would go towards the city's general fund. So based on all those benefits, that is the basis for the statement of overriding consideration. We received 7 letters during the public review period for the EIR when it was released to the public back in October. They're listed here. I don't think you need me to read them, but they are listed. And then after the close of the public review period at the beginning of December of last year, we then released the notice of the public hearing for tonight. And we received additional comments from one law firm, Mitchell-Sy Law Firm, from Riverside County Flood Control, Angela Little, Winchester landowner, the City of Paris, and then some letters of support, emails of support from William Cunningham, the Riverside County Chamber, chapter of the Building Industry of Southern California, and then multiple emails were received by the commissioners of support. And then just to mention one additional item, so it is listed here, but the city did receive today a letter from the City of Paris, and that is in your folder. Our CEQA consultant, who's also has a traffic consultant as part of their firm, provided the memo, which is in your folder. Essentially, the basis of that was we had a meeting with them. They identified that one of the exhibits within our traffic study shows trucks going down Menifee Road. And as we discussed, now the project does not include any truck trips down Menifee Road. So while it's true that in portions early on in the TIA, that exhibit is shown, if you continue to read throughout the TIA, it does talk about then the shift to putting the trucks through McLaughlin, up Case, and then along Ethanek. So the analysis that was done, as well as the truck distribution, were assigned and studied looking at that scenario. And the memo that's before you, it includes some exhibits, but that's really just to illustrate what's already analyzed and studied in the TIA. And then just to recap what the meetings that we had this past year, the project was presented before the Parks, Recs, and Trails Commission, the Finance Committee, and then the applicant as well conducted a community meeting with the Heritage Lake HOA back in December of last year. So at this time, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending City Council certify the EIR, adopt the findings of fact and statement of overriding consideration, and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Second, adopt a resolution recommending the City Council approve the general plan amendment. Third, adopt a resolution recommending the City Council approve the change of zone, specific plan amendment, and specific plan. Fourth, adopt a resolution recommending the city approve the tentative track map. And fifth, adopt a resolution recommending the City Council approve the development agreement. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Chair, if I can just add one thing, or maybe just ask Ryan to elaborate. I know there were a couple of typos in one of the results and also in the staff report, and maybe you can clarify that as well, right?
Yes, in the staff report and the resolution for the development agreement, it referenced the wrong case number. So that was rectified in the version of the resolution that you would sign tonight. So that's been fixed.
All right, thank you, Ryan. That's a large project, a large undertaking, and it seems like you guys did a phenomenal job putting this all together. So this is our chance to ask any questions of the staff. Anybody have any questions of the staff?
Yeah, I had some concerns with the traffic issues going in, and I brought it up, talked to staff already, but I just wanted to get it out there again tonight about, we talked about how trucks aren't going to be going down Menifee, they're going to be routed through and from Ethanek, correct, right? And so this project doesn't include necessarily improvements on Ethanek to the 215, correct? This project itself, right?
That's correct.
And so, but we have previously approved other projects that will be improving Ethanek from 215 over to match up with what the improvements are going to be from this project, correct?
That's correct.
And so but we do have, in case those projects don't go forward, we have a way that we would address it, the city would address it so that there would be sufficient access via Ethanek if those projects weren't to go forward.
As part of the project, they are required to pay fair shares for portions of the improvements along Ethanek in lieu of building them to mitigate. But yes, we would identify ways to improve it if necessary.
And hopefully we don't have to address that, but just in case, right, we are planning for that if that were to be an issue. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Randy? No? Chris?
No, just discussion when we.
Okay. Thank you. Joe, you have some
Yes.
questions for the staff?
Yes, yes. Once again, my question is about traffic condition, because the project is located next to the high school, and high school traffic is very busy in the morning and very busy in the afternoon, and this is what I know about high school going to school. They pick the shortest distance driving to school, not the allowed traffic. So most likely they're going to use all the roads to get to the school. So we are talking about school traffic using all the commercial street right there. It's going to be interfering with the commercial trucks going to industrial lots as well. So I'm more concerned. And another point is, I think you mentioned at the corner of Menifee and McLaughlin is going to be a round turnabout. I hope high school students know how to maneuver around.
We have adults that don't know how to do that.
Commissioner Long, may I add, the roundabout is not on Menifee or McLaughlin. It's located inside the development. It's along their Spine Road, which is their main residential. You are correct. They are a little bit challenging, but it is more on-site within the development in a kind of a more local type setting than on Menifee Road, which is more of a major roadway. In regards to your question for the traffic generated by the school, this project will develop out all the frontage of Briggs Road from 74 all the way down to the RCTC rail corridor. So they're making significant improvements and also expanding the capacity of the intersection at Briggs and 74. So it'll greatly improve the traffic capacities around that high school. So creating dual lefts, right turn lanes, so that it will facilitate the drop off and pickup times for that school.
Thank you very much for your clarification.
Yep.
And just a block south of the high school is going to be the elementary school to be built. And that's another school traffic issue. So we have two schools within 2 blocks.
You're correct. There is the schools that are very adjacent. The project also contemplates a lot of bike and pedestrian walkways to help reduce the amount of traffic demand or vehicle demand. So it's very forward thinking on how those kids are going to get to school and try to serve those communities the best way. That was another reason for putting the pedestrian bridge over the railroad corridor and creating these isolated bike trails and trails to facilitate the movement of students to both schools because they will serve areas outside of that. So we're trying to implement a multimodal system within this development that will help support both schools to keep the kids out of vehicles, keep parents from pulling up and dropping their kids off.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question, it's about the buffer zone between residential and business park, especially the residential project in 5R being next to the high school. Is that correct?
If we could bring up the PowerPoint again. So I think 5R would be adjacent. Here we go. Get to the end of this. So 5R would be on the south side. There is a buffer. There is a cross section. I don't have that in the PowerPoint. I have other cross sections, but it is presented in the specific plan, and they show separation. There's development standards to push any sort of buildings back, and there is a buffer. Okay, here it is. So as part of that interface, there'll be physical barriers such as a wall for the residential, as well as they're showing a water quality feature kind of along that edge, which would further separate kind of the parking lot for the multifamily residential from the high school. But it is included in part of the specific plan under page 5-35.
Thank you. The same question for the adjacent boundary between residential lot parcel 4 and 2 being adjacent to the business park parcel 10. How is the buffer zone in terms of noise mitigation and view?
I do have that cross-section, so if we could bring up the PowerPoint.
Yes.
So you can see how that is handled. So you have a landscape buffer, you have a potential sidewalk trail through that landscape buffer. There's also, as I mentioned, in each planning area, there are development standards for setbacks. In this particular case, you have a 100-foot setback from the property line. There's also additional setbacks if they were to do any sort of truck court or loading bay, that they be 250 feet from any residential building. So there's baked into the specific plan are a number of different development standards that really push those residents in those two planning areas you mentioned from any sort of building or truck court in planning area 10, and soften it through the use of the landscaping in that landscape buffer.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question in regards to this? Because we kind of talked about this in our meeting. So can we go back to that slide? So PA10's where all the warehouses and the commercial business park is. So when we had talked about the berm that I had suggested, would that be in between where it says screened wall and potential sidewalk or trail? Is that where the berm would go? Okay. So
Yeah.
And to the left of where it says screened wall, where it looks like it's a road or something, then there's a tree and there's a car. Is that the parking lot of the business park? Or what
I
is
take that as is intending to show a drive aisle just
Drive
on the
aisle?
west side of the PL,
Okay.
or left side of the PL.
And is that where the cars are? That's a parking lot or parking?
Yes, vehicular parking, not truck parking.
Okay. And it's projected to everything to be on the same elevation, right? There's no.
There is language in the specific plan to encourage them to drop down if feasible, to do it at a lower elevation.
Okay.
Planning area 10.
Yeah. So okay. So in our discussion, we'll talk about. I have some ideas for that right there. So. Okay.
Joe, did you have any other questions of staff?
That's all.
You're all done? Okay. Does staff feel
Jeff,
pretty?
I have one question. So Ryan, how do you determine these widths for these buffers?
Well, that's kind of why we asked for the illustrative plan. The developer presented development standards.
Right.
You know, we took a look at them, we compared them against some of our existing standards, some of our other specific plans, how they compare to those. And then we also asked for the illustrative site plan, which then takes into account those buffers. So it was sort of like a test case to see how it would actually look in the real world.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan.
Commissioner Madrid, if I can also add, obviously we also have our good neighbor policies that are guidelines that have very specific distances requirements. Obviously, all of these distance meet those guidelines as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Does staff feel pretty confident that you've addressed all of the concerns in the letters that were received and the emails received from the different entities?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and I know you mentioned several emails were received by the commissioners. I wanted to point out that I received about 30 emails. They all said the exact same thing, and not a single one was written by somebody that lives in Menifee, which was strange to me. Moving on. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. It is 6:56 p.m. Madam Clerk, was this hearing legally noticed?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. And was any correspondence received?
Yes, and that correspondence is in your folders.
Yes, it is. Thank you. All right. Can I have the applicant come up and introduce yourself, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Dave Bartlett with Brookfield Properties. We're glad to be here tonight after a 2.5-year journey. We'll have a combined presentation that will include some introductory remarks by myself as well as some project-specific comments. And then we'll be followed by Marlo Neighbor, who will summarize our community outreach program we did for the site. And then next we'll have Emily Colwell, one of our planners with T&B, that will focus her comments on the views and the interface of the site from adjacent roadways and properties. Following Emily, John Coyen, our Director of Engineering at Brookfield, will outline some of the improvements to the properties. By the way, the staff report was very comprehensive. Some of this will be a little bit duplicative, but hopefully we'll be enhancing the ultimate conversation and deliberation that you guys will have. And then finally, Sean Bowen, our project manager, will highlight the public benefits associated with the project. Again, those were very well pointed out by the city staff. But combined, will be no more than 20 to 25 minutes, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. We'll proceed like this. Would that be sufficient time? So first of all, just want to thank the staff and the opportunity to work alongside a very talented team led by City Manager's Office, along with Ms. Kitzero, Mr. Fiddler, and of course, Mr. Nix, Mr. Hernandez, Mr. Fowler, who was our lead planner and project manager. Really appreciate his help and guidance. Mr. Heron from the city's engineering team is also very instrumental, as well as the CEQA consultant led by LSA, who's here tonight with Ashley. And for the record, we are in agreement with the staff report, with the conditions of approval, with the mitigation measures, and all the requirements of the development agreement. As community planners and developers and home builders, we have developed and built many master plan communities throughout Southern California. And this includes our current flagship project, or community, I should say, the Audie Murphy Ranch. And one of the things that I think that we all take a lot of pride in here at Brookfield is that we're always trying to figure out ways to improve. And so when we look back at Audie Murphy Ranch, when we look back at Ontario, we look back at Spencer's Crossing, at the Groves and Whittier, a couple of recent planned communities that we've worked on, we look through the lens of what we did well, what we can improve upon, what the community loves, and then we try and use that lens to benefit the communities that we have coming forward. And so we've tried to do that with Menifee Valley here, and we think Menifee Valley will be the beneficiary of our recent experiences over the last several years. So this commission is going to hear from the team, and I'm personally very excited about a lot of the aspects of the community that were summarized by the staff. I'm just going to go over a couple of them, and they'll go over a few more. But the non-residential portion of the project, it's going to bring a substantial number of jobs, and it's going to increase the housing, jobs-housing ratio in the city for the better. On the residential side, the Spine Road was mentioned. Hopefully we can come up with a better name for the road in the future, but it will connect everything together. The residential community, the parks, the open space. It'll double as a linear park and trail system. I'm also, and we also are very excited about the sports park. It's an improvement upon what I think the Audie Murphy Sports Park was really well done. It's 10 acres. This one's over 16 acres. So we're going to go above and beyond and several steps beyond what we did at Audie Murphy Ranch. And as it was outlined, it was sort of the park was co-created with the Community Services Department. So really excited about seeing that implemented. And as part of the sports park, there's a really unique aspect which I'm excited about as well, which is it was described as a tot lot, and that's what it is, but it's more than that. And it's something different, and we think it's going to fill a need. And it's a tot lot that will be specifically designed for kids on the autism spectrum. And so there will be elements of sight, touch, sound, and smell. And as Steph mentioned, we're calling it an adventure playground and sensory garden. So pretty cool. And there's a strong sustainability component. I'm not going to go over all of those, but our partnership with EMWD on their brackish water well project, they're going to speak to that, and that's a strong aspect of the combined project. I'm just going to end with, I think there's a slide that we have. Can we put that one up? So I'm just going to end with the slide on the screen. We started talking to the city and the community a couple of years ago, and the purpose and community objectives, this has been sort of our North Star and our guiding light. And with the purpose being to balance the land use, economic, and recreational benefits of the property, and the objectives being to create market-driven land uses that create positive economic impacts and create jobs. Commerce and industry. So this is commerce and industry on a large scale, but it's also commerce and industry on a small business scale. Infrastructure, off-site and on-site, making sure that those circulation improvements and those concerns that have been addressed here tonight will get implemented. Open space and recreation and connectivity. There was a lot of discussion about bridging the two communities together with the pedestrian bridge, and then connecting all the way up through to Heritage High School to allow pedestrian and bicycle activity through the property, addressing some of the concerns related to traffic. Elementary school for the site, we co-created the location with Romaland, and they can't wait to build it. They have a need right away. Partner with stakeholders to advance community initiatives. A good example of this is we've been working closely with the Paris Unified High School District and helping them trying to identify a new high school site within the community. And of course, develop a best-in-class residential master plan. So that's going to conclude my remarks, and I'd like to thank everybody for their time this evening and invite Marlo to come up and address the community outreach. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Ledoux and Commissioners. My name is Marlo Neighbor, and I've worked with Brookfield in 8 of their communities over the last 20 years. A couple of them you've heard about tonight that Dave just mentioned. And I've been assisting them with developing customized outreach plans for each project. So some of these, every project's different, and so we tried to tailor something specifically for the Menifee community. We'd like to share with you the outreach we conducted specifically for Menifee Valley community. With the many benefits and amenities that you've heard about tonight, they will undoubtedly be utilized by all Menifee residents, and so we felt that it was important to extend our outreach activities throughout the valley. Over the last 2 years, members of our team have attended community-wide events for local organizations, including the Boys and Girls Club, the Community Cupboard, and the Chamber of Commerce, among others. We've shared our plans with stakeholders as well. We've met with the Economic Development Coalition, Paris Union High School District, and Romoland Elementary School District, as Dave mentioned. And we also met with the Heritage Lake HOA and their board members. During that time, we were able to share our vision for this property and ask for feedback that would ultimately help to create what we are presenting to you here today. In order to provide an avenue for proper communication, we created a project-specific email address to communicate directly with those that wanted to give input. And we also provided a web page for residents to provide comments. That also included a QR code for those of us that, well, not me, but other people who are more tech savvy, they got to use the QR code. Then closer to the project site is the community of Heritage Lake, as you know. And you heard tonight also that we held an open house for them so that they could come and see what everything looked like that they'd be able to access from this new bridge. The comments that we've received throughout this process have been very constructive, and they've added to the overall plans for the project. And we plan to continue hosting any small group meetings. If anyone wants to do that, we're still available to meet, and all the way through until we reach city council, and then beyond if they want to meet afterward to learn more about it. And then I also wanted to address, Chair Ledoux, what you mentioned about the multiple emails. We apologize for those. We typically engage the building industry to go out locally and try to find some other people that we can talk to and get to meet, and it generated that email list that came from everywhere, all over Southern California rather than just locally here, so we apologize for that. I am available for any questions if you have any questions about our outreach program, and then I can introduce Emily's next. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Emily Colwell. I am a project manager with T&B Planning, and we prepared the Menifee Valley specific plan. I will be presenting the interface conditions with the specific plan and the surrounding area. Can I do my own next click? Okay, sweet. Hopefully I clicked the right button. Ooh. Oh, all right. There's a community outreach photos there. Give that a second. Oh, sorry, do you want me to go back? Some familiar faces. All right, so on to our interface conditions. First, we have a view showing the northern boundary of the specific plan at Highway 74. This view depicts the commercial uses planned for the northern area of the specific plan. This view shows the entry signage as well as the commercial uses in the background. And buildings are required to be set back a minimum of 50 feet from the roadway. And we also have a landscape setback area and sidewalk along Highway 74. This view looks into the eastern portion of the project site along Briggs Road. This is just south of Heritage High School. This view shows the planned community farm in Planning Area 5 and the residential uses in the background. For the community farm, the plants would be primarily agricultural in nature with ornamental landscape and other features around the perimeter of the site.
Can I ask a quick question about that?
Sure.
So this was most likely done in coordination with the high school. They have a whole ag program there. Is this parcel going to be usable by the high school students for ag purposes as far as planting and things like that? Or who's going to be the owner of that parcel and who has access to it?
Sure, I'll let Dave take that question.
So that's a really great question. We're working out the details on how the high school curriculum for the high school could be integrated into the project site on a number of different bases. One is the community farm, the other might be the businesses as well. And so there's a high school representative here this evening. Does that adequately characterize what we're doing, Fred? Yeah.
So as far as who will ultimately own the parcel?
So it'll probably stay owned by Brookfield for the time being, but we will contract out, we think and we hope, it's the Minor family, who is the most recent farmer on the site and has a long history in the city of Menifee. And they've told us they're interested in doing the community farm, which would be a small-scale farming operation as well as a retail site on the corner.
So in the cases of things like drainage basins, parks, whatever, ultimately, they're usually dedicated to the city. And it may take 1 to 5 years, whatever it is, but ultimately, they go to the city. So from the city's perspective, what is your understanding of where the ultimate dedication will be on that parcel?
That community farm would be considered a commercial use. It wouldn't be a public facility owned by the city. It would be operated by a private entity.
And is that private entity ultimately considered to be Brookfield?
For the time
I mean, I
being.
don't care. I'm just wondering what direction we're going on.
Yes.
Correct.
It is
Brookfield.
Brookfield. And you're committing to a long-term ownership, 20, 30, 40 years? I mean,
It might be.
What's the plan is what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
so the plan isn't entirely set in stone, but for the immediate term, it's to work a deal out with the Minor family, and that contractual arrangement has not been solidified. And once we do that, that'll probably determine the long-term operation and maintenance of the property and ownership responsibilities as well.
So how big is that parcel?
About
Or that-
4.5
that area?
acres.
4.5 acres. So it's really not, is it commercially viable for a private farmer to use, or is the focus as a training element with the high school? I guess, that's what I'm getting
The
at.
focus is really more to have locally grown fruits and vegetables in a small little retail center for the community to have access to. There's one in Huntington Beach that's about the same size, and it's mostly served by the residents around it that just want fresh fruits and vegetables.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
If we could get the PowerPoint back. Thank you. I think that was all for this slide. So moving on, the next view is along Briggs Road at the project's primary residential entry, which is designed to be the gateway into the residential area of the site. This roadway will include landscape parkways and a landscape median, a sidewalk, and a multi-purpose DG trail. And it should be noted that this roadway alignment is designed to align with Meadow Oaks Road east of the project site so that there's circulation and cohesion between the specific plan and development east of Briggs Road. The next view is from Menifee Road at the southwestern portion of the project site. The view shows the fire station in the public facilities area of the specific plan. And Menifee Road would be improved to include a landscape setback and sidewalk along the specific plan's frontage, which you can see in the left portion of the view. And the business park buildings along Menifee Road are required to be set back a minimum of 200 feet from the roadway, which is why business park buildings are not visible in this view. Next, I know this was in Ryan's staff report, but this is the view from the Heritage Lakes community located south of the project site. In this view, you can see the pedestrian bridge proposed by the project. And I know we got into it a little bit, but just to recap the setbacks required from this adjacent development, the business park uses are required to be set back 40 feet from Matthews Road or that BNSF railway area. Additionally, the specific plan was designed to create a green belt along that southern boundary to create an increased buffer between business park and the uses south of the site in the Heritage Lake community. And the nearest home in Heritage Lakes to the business park property line is approximately 500 feet. And I think this view kind of gives you a good simulation, a perspective of what those separations look like on the ground. If you look kind of in the distance, that's where the business parks would be, so the 500 feet setback is significant. Now this interface graphic, I know, thank you Ryan, you already had it in there, but I'll just recap it again just one more time. It has the interface between the on-site residential uses and the on-site business park uses. As Ryan already covered, the development standards of the specific plan require a 100-foot minimum setback from residential structures to the business park property line. Additionally, there's a 50-foot setback from any residential property to a building face without loading docks and 250 feet to a building with loading docks. And within that buffer area that you see on the right side of the screen, there could be things such as sidewalks, landscaping, streets, trails, and other general improvements for the residential areas. Additionally, there would be a screen wall that would occur on this interface. You can see that kind of in the center of the graphic there. And the screen wall would have a maximum height of 14 feet. It's designed to screen the residential uses from the business park. That height of the wall could be reduced if a landscape berm was used, and that would be used in combination with the wall to reduce the overall wall height. And finally, we have the interface between Heritage High School and the commercial business park land uses allowed in Planning Area 12. So when initial design of the specific plan began, there was no restriction kind of on the location of loading docks or how far buildings could be set back from the high school. And that was kind of part of, through the discussions and feedback from the city, the specific plan included and added a development standard that requires that setback to be 100 feet from school property lines and does not allow for any loading docks to face the school. This ensures that future design of the buildings would provide a buffer from the commercial business park land uses and that there would be no loading docks facing the school building. And with that, I'll pass the presentation to John Coyne to discuss offsite improvements.
Thank you, Emily. Chairman Leduc, Commissioners, my name is John Coyne. I'm with Brookfield Properties Development. I've been with the company for 10 years, 1 month, and 28 days, and I say that with a smile on my face. I have the pleasure of waking up every morning saying I get to go to work and I don't have to go to work. That's a testament to what Brookfield means to me personally, and I think that's our culture. Without going through names, I'd like to, as Dave said, thank a lot of the staff and senior management here at the city. It was a long process, but it was worth the effort. I mean, there was a very collaborative effort to get to where we are today, and I think we're in a good position for us personally, for the city and the community. Just want to take a couple of minutes to talk about the infrastructure responsibilities. I don't think I'm going to say anything new that hasn't already been in the presentation, but let me just ramble a few things here in a couple of minutes. I have 5 different sets of improvement requirements that will be conditioned upon us. One is going to be off-site, second is perimeter and frontage improvements. I'm sorry, the first was on-site, then our perimeter frontage improvements. 3 are off-site improvements that need near-term improving today. And the 4th is off-site improvements that don't have to be approved today but require funding. And then the 5th is just additional miscellaneous funding. So the first item, the on-site improvements, if we have a slide, is it an up arrow on this? Big one. Oh, went too far. Is there backwards? Am I going the wrong way? There we go. Okay. Our project is the top right corner, if you will. That's the project. The first bit is the on-site improvements, which are on this plan just show the east-west road that runs through the middle of the project, which is McLaughlin Road, and then the north-south Malaga Road that connects Highway 74 to McLaughlin. And I'm going to apologize. There's a lot of M-word streets out here, McLaughlin, Malaga, McKinley. If I say one wrong, somebody tap me on the shoulder figuratively and let me know I said the wrong one here. But there was discussion about the roundabout that is not showing up on this slide, but if you can see through the yellow planning areas, which is the residential, that's north-south squiggly road that we've called the Spine Road, where the Spine Road hits McLaughlin, there will be a traffic circle there. That is intended to deter trucks from going easterly. With working with the city, we'll probably have to design that traffic circle to allow trucks to go that way, although it would be difficult for them, but we'll be conditioned to not to let business park users know trucks are not supposed to go that way. I think it was Commissioner Long that was thinking maybe it was at Menifee. That's not where it is. It's there more in the central part of the project. The Spine Road also that was mentioned is not part of this tentative map. It will come into play with a future subsequent residential tentative map that will define where the Spine Road actually is, but it is included as part of the specific plan.
Can I ask you a question about what you just said?
Yes.
Number one, on the roundabout, are you saying that are you implying it's not legal to design it in a way to prevent trucks from going through?
I'd love to turn that over to Mr. Fiddler, if he can maybe address that.
Vice Chair, we would design the roundabout to discourage the use of trucks through that corridor by you put aprons and things like that around the roundabout that an emergency vehicle, because we have to still allow for a fire truck, which the ladder truck is about equivalent to a semi-truck would use it, but they would drive up on the apron. There are techniques that we can use that would choke one corner of the roundabout. For instance, if you're going north up the Spine Road and tried to go out, you could. But if you're going eastbound on McLaughlin and you're trying to go continue east, we could neck that down a little bit to where the truck couldn't go through that way. It would have to go around the roundabout and come back out. So there are techniques we can use, but John's right. We would have to design it to where we make sure that emergency vehicles could get through it. But there are techniques that we can use to limit some movements of the circle.
The second question is, someone has said on the Spine Road there would be linear park. Are you saying that the Spine Road would be so wide that there would be a center that would be linear? Where would the linear park be?
It's along the parkway, and I believe it's the west side of the parkway.
Oh, so it'd be on one side?
Yeah, so
okay.
it's a wider than standard parkway on that. I believe it's the westerly side. It's in the specific plan, and so it does provide for a larger green belt and I believe it's a 10-foot pedestrian bicycle type of trail that runs north-south
that's
through
what
there.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The second set of improvements are what I would call the perimeter frontage. So if we look at, and those are perimeter frontage and not quite frontage. So those are Menifee Road, so which is on the west side of the project. We'll be putting in the ultimate improvements on our side of the road, adding an additional lane on the west side of the road. That will include up what is now off-site all the way north to Highway 74. So against Edison has a I can't remember what it's called there, but call it an Edison facility on the east side of the road. And then there's an AM/PM ARCO. So we'll be doing improvements all of the way. Those are now off-site up to and including that intersection with improvements at the intersection. Improvements along Highway 74, again, what is our frontage there along the planning area 13, the commercial, plus what we consider off-site, again, on the west side in front of the AM/PM ARCO and on the east side in front of the Heritage High School. So on the south side, we'll be improving that entirety from Briggs to, or from Menifee to Briggs of 3 lanes on the south side, and it will maintain the 2 lanes on the north side. And then on Briggs Road, again, Commissioner Long was talking about traffic along the Heritage High School, and Mr. Fiddler addressed it, but right now, adjacent to the high school, the road is built out to its ultimate on the west side, which is built for 2 lanes. On the east side, it's only 1 lane. We're being conditioned to put in the additional lane on the east side. So with this project, Briggs from Highway 74 all the way down to Matthews by Granite Hill will be 4 lanes in each direction plus the raised median. The third is what I've categorized as off-site improvements needing, or off-site needing near-term improvements. So we're looking at, on this map, the westerly extension of McLaughlin west of Menifee to connect to Matthews, and then up Matthews in that diagonal direction. That bit of Matthews is existing today, but it's not fully improved. It is in a couple of areas. We'll be widening it to its ultimate in those areas that are not improved. McLaughlin in the east-west there's no road there today. There's a paper road, if you will, but we'll be improving that. So that will provide that circulation to Ethanek. And then the other one is the McCall Boulevard, which the traffic impact report says that we provide, there's enough residential traffic that will get there that requires us to do some improvements. There was discussion about when the bridge slide came up, there's the question about maybe a $3 million, Chairman Thomas, $3.7 million question mark there. So the way the McCall works, and it's spelled out in the DA, is from a transportation standpoint, the project contributes 37% of the future traffic to that roadway. So we're financially responsible for 37% of that. We are going to be building it at 100%. We will then get reimbursed for the 63% balance, which is, it's a number and I don't know what that is. That will come to us from DIF contributions, TUMF contributions, if there's any RBBD, battery storage, general fund. There might be other developments that have to contribute that would come to the city that would then come back to us. So we will be made whole with the 63%, and the 3.7 million on the bridge was, if for some reason the pedestrian bridge can't be built for whatever reasons, the city owes us the 3.7 less funding back on the McCall. So that's how that worked out. And I hope that made sense.
If I may ask, what's the total dollar amount on those McCall improvements?
We think it's on the order of $18 million, but that's a very rough number.
And are those improvements, are you widening or just putting curb and gutter the entire length? What are we doing?
So McCall right now, between, help me if I stumble through this, it's mostly 2 lanes right now. There's a section between Junipero and the hospital road that is a single lane in each direction. The city has a current capital improvement program to widen those 1 lane in each direction to 2. We'll then take it from there and take what would be a 4-lane road, 2 in each direction, and make it 3 lanes in each direction.
So to answer your question, the project will not ultimately be required to put curb, gutter, and sidewalks in areas that that are not developed already. There's a lot of times we want to preserve that for when the roads or the development occurs, because they'll go in and tear it out to put their infrastructure in, utilities, whatever that might be. So we didn't want to waste the money twice. So wherever there is existing curb, gutter, and sidewalks, where it requires widening in order for us to achieve the 3 lanes in each direction, they will be required to put curbs, gutters, and sidewalks back. But the project will be required to meet the 3 lanes in each direction.
And is that a financial contribution or they're physically building it?
They're physically building
Physically
it.
building it, okay, wonderful.
And the DA has the timing of when the improvements have to be completed, started, those kinds of things.
John, real quick, just one point of clarification on terms of sources of reimbursement. It is not DIF funds for reimbursement, so just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Nor RBBD. That doesn't fall within the RBBD zone as well. So it's mainly there's TUMF available. There is the community benefit from the BESS projects, and then CFD. Yeah.
Okay. The 4th item is offsite improvements that require funding from us. They're not improvements that are required today, but we provide traffic, a certain percentage of traffic to those areas. So we have financial contributions. It was a slide that was up on the screen. It's basically a check in the amount of $4.7 million. And I shouldn't say it that way. It's through building permits we pay, the DA talks about how that $4.7 million is paid to the city. And then the last one is just any TUMP fees that we'll be paying, DIF fees we'll be paying if there are RBBDs that come on the site. I don't know if there are any today, but the development agreement talks about if there are any, we are participants in it. And that's all I have, and I'm available for questions now or later. Otherwise, I will, yes.
I don't know if you know this at this point, just wondering. Do you think there's going to be a net import or export of dirt when you're grading all this, or is everything going to stay on site? And again, you may not know that,
Yeah,
but just on basic geology,
yeah, I mean, if you've seen the site, it's flat as a pancake.
It's pretty flat.
Yeah. We're going to do the best we can to just make it balance on site. That financially, that makes the most sense. I guess I'd like to always say reserve the right to, during some part of the construction, you may have to haul off a truckload of dirt or haul in a truckload of dirt. But as far as our mass grading plan that's been designed right now, it balances on site.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, if no other questions right now, I'll pass it on to our project manager, Sean Bowen.
Chair Ledoux, commissioners, appreciate your time. I definitely appreciate staff's on this as well. So I wanted to just briefly touch on some of the public benefits of this project, some of the things that we're really excited about. It is repeating a little bit of what Mr. Fowler presented, so I hope I don't bore anyone. We did collaborate extensively with Director Nix and the Community Services Department on this sports park and aquatic center. And I know they're very excited to have the city's first aquatic center. And we were excited to be able to contribute to this. So we had, originally I think we had soccer fields in here, and we received feedback from community services with Heritage Lake Sports Park having abundant soccer fields that we transitioned this to ballparks. So definitely collaboration with the city on this. We were appreciative to have a team that we can work with to develop a vision that really benefits the city and the future residents. And as Dave had mentioned about the Adventure Playground Sensory Garden, speaking to elements of the autism spectrum, and we felt that's an important component of this sports park. Additionally, the preservation of Granite Hill, environmentally sensitive areas, but we do want to point out that I think we'll be providing a trailhead, maybe a water fountain at the base of it to provide a starting point for the hikes. We do have the private residential recreation.
Can we back up real quick?
Yeah.
Can we go back to that picture?
Yep.
So you're going to have a trailhead and maybe a drinking fountain, and then is there going to be any improvement of the trails other than it being cut? Like, is there going to be DG'd? Is there going to be anything at the top? Or is it just strictly going to be left au natural?
I believe it's going to be all natural due to the environmental and I want to say archaeological sensitivity to it.
Hey, Sean, remind me, what building permit is it going to have to be done before you have the aquatic center?
I believe it's the plans need to be approved by the first building permit, and by the 250th building permit needs to be constructed.
All right, thank you.
Occupancy.
Occupancy, right.
Another question. Sorry, this is a dumb question. Will this all ultimately be dedicated to the city, the entire park? Okay.
Just one question, please. I'm very impressed with your sensory adventure park. Just an additional comment. A number of residents always when they talk to me, they always love to have musical park. So I wonder if a musical park could be integrated into your sensory adventure.
Some sort of sound component.
Yes.
That would make sense for the fifth sense. It's absolutely something that we can work with community services on implementing that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. The private recreation center. These are some images of our existing recreation centers that we have built in our communities. If you don't mind, I'll run through them real quick. That is the Groves in Whittier on the top left. Center top is Ontario Ranch. And then top right, which should be the biggest of all, is Audie Murphy Ranch, the ranch house. And then to the right is Ontario Ranch as well. I think we take a lot of pride in our rec centers. We try to stuff it with amenities, and this one won't be any different. We're looking to exceed what we've done before. North-south Spine Road, like Dave, I cringe at the term Spine Road, so we'll definitely have a new moniker for that. But we really do, as Dave pointed out, we see it as somewhat serving as a linear park of sorts as well, with an expanded parkway, street furniture trail on the west side. And the goal of this was to provide this accessibility to the elementary school, to the high school to the north, given that we are able to complete the pedestrian bridge to Heritage Lake. It just provides ambulatory access throughout the community. Pause Park, this is set to be between the Business Park building and Planning Area 5 and the, possibly multifamily. Brookfield takes pride in including some sort of dog park in almost all of our communities that we build. and the typical segregation for small dog versus a large dog area. But that's, I think that's a key component of our vision for the community as well. And as we touched upon, a community farm that would be privately run, but provide access for fresh fruits and vegetables, locally grown fruits and vegetables. We've had initial discussions with the Miner family. They've expressed a strong desire to continue some sort of program here, and they've been farming this for, I think he said, 100 years. So it's I think a perfect opportunity for this. Bridging communities, we really want to do everything we can for this pedestrian bridge so that we're able to connect these two communities and have the Heritage Lake residents have easy access to the high school, have easy access to the elementary school, the ones that would be serviced by this future elementary school, and then as well as for maybe Menifee Valley residents to access the Heritage Lake Sports Park as well. And then just real quick, you know, the Roma Land Unified School District, we've been collaborating with them for the past 2 years, and they're very excited for this opportunity. They wish they could break ground tomorrow. And then as well as the Civic Node and Fire Station for the city. If I was smart, I would have thrown on here the $10 million payment that we'll be contributing. And real quick, there's just the final aspect, just some of the financial benefits. You know, we had David Tossick and Associates prepared a fiscal impact analysis, which looked at existing tax revenues, property tax revenues of about $250,000, $300,000. At build out, it'll increase to about $13.1 million, with large amount going to both the county and city, but as you can see, the big winner would be the school districts. And then touching upon the jobs housing ratio as well, pre-project 0.43. This is set to produce about 4,200 jobs, permanent full-time jobs within the community. And I think that's it. Our team is absolutely available for any questions the commissioners may have.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your additional presentation to what we saw. This is our time to ask questions of the applicant. So, any questions? I mean, we've been asking throughout. Chris, do you have some additional questions for the applicant?
Yeah, it's going to involve staff. So,
okay.
So, kind of in our meeting, we talked about the commercial business park section. Can we pull that slide up? The overall one that had the planning areas and such.
Can we have staff's presentation, please? Thank you.
So the definition of business park versus commercial business park. From my understanding, the definition of the business parks will allow warehousing, distribution, things like that. Fine. Could you define to me and we talked about this in the meeting, the difference between the business park allowed uses and the commercial business park? And my understanding is that it requires some slightly smaller warehousing, if that's can you talk about the definition of the commercial business park?
Yeah, so there is that, it does require the slightly smaller buildings. Also, in addition to that, there's some differences in the allowable use table for between the two. There are certain uses in the 10 and 11 that are allowed that wouldn't be allowed in this 12. Like, for instance, you need a CUP instead of just being allowed by right for equipment sales, for large and small equipment sales. For government maintenance, storage, distribution, you can do it in the 10 and 11, but you could not do it in the 12. Outside storage, as long as it's screened, you could do it in 10 and 11. You can't do it in the 12. So there's different examples of different uses that are allowed in business park, but not in 12. There's also, on the flip side, there are some a lot of commercial uses that are allowed in the 12 that are not allowed in the 10 and 11, so directing those towards
Such as?
planning area 12. Restaurants, I know, was one. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that's my issue is I kind of saw that as a transition, and in your conceptual plan, you had basically a warehouse there. Now I know it's smaller, but to me, allowing warehousing and distribution, even with a CUP, would not be a good use for the commercial business park. If it's truly going to be a transition, I would not want to see a warehouse there. What I would envision there is, like you say, the commercial retail. I'm not sure retail would even sink that far down. Maybe it would. I don't know. But I would envision smaller commercial condos where you've got maybe a 10,000-foot warehouse in the back and maybe a retail front or even an office in the front. Something that would bring in 10, 20, 30 small businesses in there versus a warehouse. That was what I would envision a commercial business park to be, a smaller scale. So do you guys understand what I'm trying to envision there? If you drive along the 215 and you pass Ethan-Ack, and on the right, there's the motorcycles, there's the whatevers. Those are what I would call, I would call those commercial condos. Maybe that's not the right word for it, but that's what I'm envisioning for that area. Because I've had friends who've had businesses in there, and because of the smaller size, they could locate there. So I would encourage that we would change the definition of the CBP to eliminate the warehousing and require, if it's gonna have warehousing, it'd be a smaller scale with office frontage kind of a thing.
Vice Chair?
Yeah.
My apologies, this is definitely an important conversation. However, I would limit this to just direct questions to staff, the applicant, and then allow public comments, and you can make those
Okay,
suggestions.
so we'll hold that then. My other question is, the original plans for this back a couple years ago had power lines going down the middle. Now, is it my understanding that San Diego's SDG&E has gotten rid of those power lines, or are they still gonna go down the middle ultimately?
There's still a corridor along McLaughlin that has them running, because they are transmission lines.
Are they currently there, or they're going to be there? Are they, I can't remember if they're currently there right now. So do you have a schematic of something with, like originally that was gonna be like 100-foot wide or 200-foot wide, and there was gonna be the power lines down the middle with a little walking park, and there was gonna be, the roads that were gonna be on each side of that. What are you envisioning for McLaughlin right now? Do we have an elevation of that?
There actually is a cross-section on page 519 of the specific plan, and it shows those power lines, and then there's, I'm not sure if that's, I'm looking at the south or the north side of that McLaughlin Road, but there's also a 16-foot wide trail that kind of capitalizes off that corridor for the transmission lines. And there is a 40-foot wide landscape setback from the road right-of-way to the north.
Okay, so one would be one way in on one side and one way out on the other, or would it be both directions on each side of the power lines? As far as the TIA?
The power lines are not in the center of the roadway anymore, as was a previous version.
And so where are they? Are they gonna sit to the side of the road? Is that what that is? Okay. And do they run through the south section of planning area 5? Is that right?
I believe that would be 11 and 12. Yeah, and south side of 5.
The south side of 5. Okay. So they're still there. That's it for questions. I have a few other discussion points. Okay.
Joe, did you have?
That's it for my question. Okay.
Okay. We good? Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on this item?
Yes, I have 4 requests to speak.
Okay.
I first have Alex Madrid, followed by John Worth.
Thank you.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening. My name is Alex Madrid. I'm with the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters. Now, I live in the area, work and recreate in the vicinity. I believe that I will be impacted by the environmental impact of the project. The city should require the project to be built with contractors that will hire locally, pay prevailing wage, and utilize apprentices from state certified apprenticeship training programs. Workforce requirements reduce construction-related environmental impact while benefiting the local economy and workforce development. In a recent 2020 report titled Putting California on the High Road, a Jobs and Climate Action Plan for 2030, California Workforce Development Board concluded that the investment in growing and diversifying and upskilling California workforce can positively affect returns on climate mitigation efforts. The South Coast Air Quality Management District recently found that local higher requirements can result in air pollutants reduction. Recently, the state of California reiterated its commitment towards encouraging workforce development and housing affordability through the Affordable Housing and High Roads Jobs Act of 2022, otherwise known as Assembly Bill number 2011, which requires projects pay workers a prevailing wage and hire from state certified apprenticeship programs for projects meeting certain sightings, affordability, and development standards. That concludes mine. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Madrid.
John Worth, followed by Connie Stouffer.
Good evening, Chair Ledoux, members of the Planning Commission. John Worth, Water Resources Planning Manager with Eastern Municipal Water District. I'm here to speak on the investments that EMWD is making on local resources, and also to thank Brookfield for their cooperation and coordination on this project. Specifically, our recycled water program and our desalinization program. So as you may know, our recycled water program is very extensive in the city of Menifee. Heritage Lakes was the first master planned development to incorporate recycled water for all of the common area landscape. Audie Murphy Ranch is another large project using recycled water. This project will also be conditioned to use recycled water for all of its common area landscapes, and parks and schools and streetscapes. What we appreciate is we've been working with Brookfield to advance the design and construction of a regional transmission pipeline that will go up Briggs Road, across Highway 74, and connect up to the north. That provides the ability to serve the Heritage High School, the Marion Ashley Community Center, also the Harvest Elementary, and then the countryside development that is in construction right now was conditioned for recycled water, and they have all the infrastructure there, but they just need the recycled water supply. So this pipeline will make that connection and provide for further expansion of our recycled water system in the area. In addition, the desalinization program, as you may know, Eastern owns and operates a desalinization complex over on the corner of Marietta and Valley Boulevard. Basically, this takes non-potable groundwater that currently exists, runs it through treatment, including reverse osmosis, and makes that into drinking water. We are looking to expand the groundwater well system to provide supply. And we are currently working with Brookfield to assess, appraise, and potentially acquire 2 separate lots within the development to construct new desalter wells. I think one key thing here, our investments in local supply is important for a variety of reasons. I think for the interest of this commission, it is one of the key elements that allows us to accommodate future growth. So this is a nice partnership with Brookfield. It provides us an opportunity to invest in these improvements, do it at a very cost-effective manner, and in a way that is minimizes the impact to the community. So we just want to express thanks to Brookfield for that. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to ask. If there are any tough questions, we have Sean Stone, who is our Senior Director of Engineering here as well.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Connie Stouffer, followed by Patricia Bruns.
Stand at the side because I'm a little short. My name is Connie Stouffer. I'm the Executive Director of the Economic Development Coalition. We work in partnership with the city and the Economic Development team here to do business recruitment on behalf of the region. And I just want to speak in favor of the project. Not only, obviously, is there a need for more residential housing available in the region, but the inclusion of industrial space and commercial space is a great need. We've seen a tremendous amount of interest in both industrial and commercial businesses coming to the area, and one of the primary hindrance to that is just available space of all sizes. And so in addition to that, the inclusion of incubator spaces is also incredibly valuable to our region, and we don't have enough. We just have so much demand and not enough places to put businesses that are interested in the area. And so I want to thank the commission and the staff for their tremendous amount of work that they've put into this project, and to Brookfield for their interest and investment in the work that they've done to bring this. I have to say that we've also worked with Brookfield over the last while, and they've been tremendous community partners to the EDC. And so we're just here to thank the city and all those partners involved in working to bring more additional resources so that we can help bring more businesses to the region, so that people don't have to drive 2 hours to work and could possibly bike or walk to work. I think that's a tremendous asset to the community and would bring a lot of interest here to the area. So thank you.
Thank you.
Patricia Bruns.
Thank you. I'm also a little short. I'll be quick and to the point. I want to say good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Patricia Brenes. I'm the Planning Manager with the City of Paris. I'm here to speak on behalf of the city. And we respectfully disagree with your staff regarding the assertion of trucks traveling on Ethernet. Our review of the traffic impact analysis shows that there is a discrepancy between the analysis shown on the traffic study and the information provided by staff regarding trucks traveling on Ethernet to the I-215 freeway. The details are provided on the City of Paris letter provided today for your consideration. Therefore, to adequately address the environmental impacts related to the project, we believe that this project should be continued to allow the TIA to be revised and for the EIR to be recirculated. And that concludes my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other requests to speak?
I have none.
Okay. Is there anyone out in the audience that would like to? Okay. Come on up, and then I'm going to ask you to fill out a form too, so we can get you down. Go ahead and come up. Can you introduce yourself first, please?
My name's John Gentilon. I'm a property owner in Dawson Road in the area, and this project will go a long ways for us, improving the city of Menifee. Also, I'm an employer in the area, and also having the ability for my employees to have housing in the area. And I think it's very important for us to have Brookfield, and they're going to put together a good project. I've been working with Brookfield for years in my business, and they do put together a good project. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sean. Okay, I think that concludes the public section of this. So we're going to close the public hearing. It is 7:54. I think it's appropriate at this time for anyone on the commission to disclose if you've met with the applicant or the developer.
Yes, I have several times.
Okay.
I've met with the applicant as well.
Okay.
I've had discussions with them.
Okay.
None.
Okay. I've also met with the developer as well. Okay, moving on. This is our time to discuss the project amongst ourselves, ask questions. So I'll just start down on this end. If you guys have any questions or comments of.
I don't have any question. I think everything's been addressed. Commissioner Thomas came up with a rather interesting change, but overall, I like the project. It's a really good project for the community. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I'm obviously a ton of work has been put into this by both staff and the applicant, so I commend everybody for all the work that's gone into this. I mean, I don't know that we've seen this large of a project during our time on the commission, or that we will anytime soon again, right? But it's a great project. I remember years ago when I was early on the commission seeing a different earlier iteration of this project, and this project is significantly better than that previous iteration. So thank you for that, working with the city and getting us to this point, because this is a much better project that I really think is going to be great for the city. I like it for the most part. I will echo Commissioner Thomas's statements regarding that. I know during my meetings with applicant, we discussed having kind of those smaller mom and pop type of, not mom and pop necessarily, but you know what I'm saying, the smaller businesses that we don't really have a lot of that available in the city of Menifee. Our surrounding neighbor cities have those buildings to do that, and we don't really have that. So I don't know if we want to bring applicant back up and see what their thoughts on that are, but I do agree with you on that, the need for that in the city.
Jeff, is this a proper time to ask staff if they've looked at this?
I'll address that when we talk.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. I've been thinking Audie Murphy is the best master plan in Menifee until today. I'm so impressed with your proposal for the residential development. It's going to be even greater than Audie Murphy. My family used to go to Audie Murphy parks just to enjoy seeing people playing, and this common park is going to be even bigger. So that's especially you mentioned about the sensory park. So it's an amazing thing you are proposing. Thank you. I would also like to echo Commissioner Thomas for the business park, smaller warehouses, more business operation. I've been trouble with the high concentration of warehouses in this area, and we really need more businesses in this area. We have a lot of with the residential project, we will have plenty of opportunity for businesses to open up for local residents. Thank you.
So we'll continue our discussion on the CBP. What I would ask is that you work with staff on redefining the language in the CBP, and my vision, and I think we're together on this, is something similar to the commercial condos along 215 right there across from Home Depot and Winco. You'll see there is a motorcycle shop.
It's the Langston Motorsports and
Langston
the
Motorsports
gun
and
shop. There's a
yeah.
tint shop over there.
Yeah.
Small businesses.
Yeah, and so Ryan, we had talked about Commerce Point. What are the smaller units? Those are like 50,000 square feet, is it?
Those are about 100,000.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get away from that. Even those, I envision large ones. Those what I would consider a medium size, and then bring it down to, I don't know, I'm 10 to 30,000 square feet, whatever those ones are by Langston Motorsports. The goal is to accomplish a smaller business owner, but not a mom and pop. It's not a taco shop. It's something that a construction guy could come in, automotive repair, something. You need some square footage, but it's not so large that it would be prohibitive.
Commissioner Thomas, if I may, if I can ask the IT team to pull up staff's presentation. I'd just like to clarify on the conceptual site plan, there are those opportunities. So as you look at this conceptual site plan from north to south, the linear, let's say, beige buildings along the frontage at Highway 74, and then just north of the planning area 12 that you're referring to, those are the types of buildings you're requesting. So when we were looking at the variety of building types, variety of building sizes, variety of opportunity for business types, that was taken into consideration. And so we do have those smaller type
So could we step it up from there, something between those and the 1 million square foot warehouses that are permitted in the BP, right? The BP has what's, well, no, this is CBP. These are BP. Yeah, what I'm saying is the BP allows, what's the maximum size on warehouse or distribution in BP? I think it's 1 million, isn't it?
There's no maximum size. I think the size limitations you're referring to are the provisions to allow for administrative approvals of implementing projects. And so
there's no size limitation in BP?
On any of them.
Okay.
The size limitation is to allow for administrative approval. So, and that baseline was based on this conceptual site plan. So if the largest building in planning area 10 is 1.4 million.
Okay.
If they went any bigger than that, they couldn't do administrative approvals. And so in that planning area 13, those buildings you see there are about 560,000 square feet. So administrative approval, if it's a permitted use, would be that threshold. Anything bigger would have to come to the Planning Commission.
Okay, so what I'm trying to accomplish with this is to have something in between the yellow micro ones and the potentially larger ones. So to me, that would require not only not administrative, but a total size limitation, whether that's 100,000 square foot, I don't know. You're the experts on that, work on that. What I want is to have a transition size, maybe it's bigger than those the micro ones in yellow, but it's not gonna allow one big large one in there. I'm looking for, just like we do in housing, we have small houses, large, medium to large. I'm looking for the same concept there.
Chris, can I ask you,
Yes.
in these two buildings,
Yes.
could you do what we're all agreeing with you on in these two buildings here?
No,
divided up
what
smaller
those two
into-
buildings are probably what, 500,000 square feet? Yeah.
But
See,
they're not single tenant, right?
No,
They're-
no, they are. These are single tenant.
No,
No, there's nothing requiring or limiting them to be single tenant or multi-tenant. So even the buildings that you were referring to down at the other project, those all could be subdivided into multiple tenant buildings.
So the operative word there is the could. What I'm trying to do is put a ceiling here. My goal is to have multi-tenant in here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I
That's
think we all
my goal.
agree.
So maybe I'm not communicating this well. My goal is to have multi-tenant, multi-opportunities. I don't want I mean, it's a bad example. Home Depot will come in and use that as a middle range distribution. I want to see 10 different companies in there that have opportunities in there.
I think from a market perspective and a use perspective, obviously this isn't a site plan that we're approving as part of the entitlements today. We don't know who those end users are. Perhaps the applicant would want to speak to the building size and marketability and having multi-tenants in those
And I'll frame what
buildings.
you're going to say with, I don't see a net benefit to the city of warehousing in this city. But from a market perspective, I understand your need for it.
Excuse me, real quick, Chris. At this point, we'll probably have to open up the public hearing once again.
Do we, for him
So,
to speak? No, he's the applicant. We don't have to open it up, do we?
Yeah, I think it's just better for the administrative record to have it open.
That's fine.
So let's do that. It's 8:04. We're going to reopen the public hearing aspect. And
So I can still speak?
Yeah, go
during the
ahead.
public-
Yeah.
Okay, so net benefit, I do not believe it's a benefit to the city. I understand from a market perspective why you're doing it. So that, having said that, I think it is a net benefit to the city to have a diversity of product. And while we cannot give you specific guidelines at what we're approving today, we can put development standards on it that would limit or design what's in those areas. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is working, okay? Yeah, it's a very good discussion you guys are having here. And it's a discussion that we've had quite a bit as well. And that's why in the beige, you do see I believe that's about 260,000 square feet of total buildable area in those beige linear up against Highway 74 and then back behind the retail. And those can be subdivided into smaller spaces, larger spaces, whatever the case might be. Here, the issue is that we are 83 miles from the Port of Long Beach. And so we're sort of on the edge. And as you all know, we're not on the freeway. And so the marketability for this site for these types of uses and the resultant economic benefits and community benefits that were discussed earlier are all based upon buildings that are a little bit larger. And you see a couple of million square footers in there, but the two that are next to or south of the incubator spaces, those are 500,000 square feet. So they are a little smaller than the two large ones. I believe that one to the top is also around 500,000 or 600,000 square feet, and the same one down to the south. So you do have diversity of product type. I would ask if there would be a possibility to use words like encourage rather than mandate, because mandating really ties our hands on being able to be flexible towards the market demand. We're hearing what you're saying, and we can certainly move into a strategic direction like that, but to be mandated might result in nothing ever getting done, unfortunately. And so that then reduces the economic benefits that go along with the site.
So based on recent experience that we've had with encouraging, is the city got dumped on. So while Brookfield has a really good reputation, and I trust that, my experience in doing this for going on 15 years has been that we do have to put some parameters on it. So what I would suggest is, instead of us mandating certain verbiage, you work with staff and come up with some kind of a limitation to the size of those buildings. I'll let you and staff work it out, or we will. It's up to their vote. To have something of a more diverse product without destroying, your marketability on that.
If I could, and I appreciate the comments. One additional item that I think is relevant to the discussion is we are in escrow on the property to sell the business park or the blue buildings to a buyer. And the requirements to close escrow include no limitations on the size of the buildings. And so by putting a limitation on it specifically and mandating it compromises the escrow. So that's why I would say if you could see to it some encouraging or move in this direction, it would help us be able to work with our buyer.
So what, besides the size, so the significant differences between BP and CBP are some uses, but is the major difference just the use of a CUP between those two, or what?
Well, and two, there was one slide, and Director Hare mentioned it, is the process. So if it's over that 500,000 square foot size, then it can't be approved administratively here. And the limit is like the 1.4 million for planning areas 10 and 11. Those could be approved administratively if they're under those sizes.
And
So
10 and
it's
11 is
partly the
which area
process.
again? Can we go to the planning area? Oh, those big ones, okay, okay. Well, I'll leave it to what the rest of the commission thinks of that.
Vice Chair, if I can also make one more comment. One of the other differences for Planning Area 12, as you know, there are specific requirements to prohibit bay doors facing the high school, right? So that additional requirement was placed on Planning Area 12, which wasn't placed on any of the other planning areas. So technically, by default, and because of those requirements, you're getting this type of configuration of those two buildings because they have to face those bay doors internally. So that's why it's not a bigger building. That's why there are smaller buildings facing the bay doors away from the high school.
Okay. I'll let the rest of the commission decide on the importance and validity of how to handle this. My second issue I wanted to discuss was, and I did discuss this with you and with staff, is between planning areas 4 and 2 and 10. There is that 100-foot buffer with tree screening. I personally would see the benefit to the residential community of having a berm there. And I say that from personal experience, where in my neighborhood, we were kind of an island, and there was nothing around us. And then they built Mapleton next to us. We are larger kind of mini ranch estates. So to buffer that, there is a roughly 15-foot high berm, and there's trees on top of that. It goes a long ways to buffering sound, vision, people actually entering. It really does a lot to do that. It doesn't stop all the noise, but it does make our area a little island. I would encourage that 100-foot section include a berm in addition to trees. As simply a wall, I wouldn't want to live next to a wall personally. And the thinking here is the residential area kind of needs to be an island unto itself. If you're going to live next to a warehouse, there needs to be some pretty significant buffering there. So I would encourage the building of a requirement of a berm there. That's why I was asking about your net with your balancing or not the site. So if you're not going to have to import dirt, maybe that would help towards the net balancing. I don't know. So I don't know those are my two items that I would bring up for the commission to consider.
Just to clarify, is this the location between planning area 10
Yes,
and then
yes.
2 and 4? Okay.
Anything, just think, if it's residential and building and business park, that needs to have a significant buffer with a berm there, would be my.
I tend to agree.
Chair, are you comfortable with the applicant speaking?
Yeah, I mean, you want to have some additional
Sure,
answers?
sure,
Yeah.
let's talk.
We still are open, right?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And another great point, we talked about this, I think, about a year ago. And what we did is, in order to try to accommodate the best grading outcome possible, is raise the height of the wall. So the wall got higher, potentially could get higher to mitigate what you're asking for. But in speaking with John, who's our engineering expert, I think what you're asking for is reasonable, and we can figure that out.
Okay, I appreciate it.
How about that? I tend to agree with. I see where you're going with the smaller business buildings. I think at the same time we got to be sensitive to what the market is bearing for, what the demand is for. So I agree that's where we should try to head. But if the market when they're built, if the market says, hey, you know what, this is not what's happening right now, this is not what's in demand, then maybe we're handcuffing them a little bit.
Chair?
Just my thoughts.
Chairman, my apologies.
Oh, we should close.
Yes, although it seems like we have a.
If it's all right, if I add, I just
Sure.
I just wanted to add some comments about the size of the buildings. I agree, having buildings of all various sizes is very important because you have businesses from incubators. They're not going to be able to go straight to a 100,000 square foot building.
Yeah.
But we do, in my opinion, need to be able to have the ability to have some larger buildings. At the EDC, we don't do any recruitment of distribution facilities. That's not something we feel is necessarily economically advantage for our communities. We just had a site tour or a FAM tour of site selectors come through the region touring what we have available. And one of the comments they said is that we don't have anything that's large enough for most of the projects that they're working on. Most of them are going to require 100,000 square feet and larger. That 100,000 would be the very smallest that they're working on for some of these bigger national clients. And right now, we just don't have anything available for that.
And when you say you're working with those clients, is that a distribution, an assembly, or just simply in and out? What is it?
It wouldn't be distribution. So most of what the projects that those clients are working on are pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, tech, those types of projects. And so most of those projects that they're working on for these larger national site selectors are not your small to mid-sized businesses. They're more large national, multinational companies that are going to require larger square footages. And so in some ways, by not having any of that available, or at least to have the option to have it available, we kind of make ourselves not in the running for those projects. And so from our perspective, it would help us to bring more of those projects to the area if we knew we had the opportunity to build those facilities.
So I would encourage something to that, like you say, the pharmaceutical, all that. What I would like to stay away from is the distribution, strictly distribution, which is high truck traffic. So I don't know if there's some wording that could be included to encourage or CUP a distribution or something like that, that wouldn't kill the deal, but would kind of hone it down a little. Ultimate goal, less distribution, more other. So those are my thoughts. I don't know what the rest of the commission
I
thinks.
agree. So we're going to stop the back and forth now and close the public hearing, yeah? Okay. It's 8:16, so we'll close the public hearing at 8:16. We'll continue discussion.
I'm good.
Do you
So
guys have
rest
any
of you guys, what you
comments?
think?
I mean, Chris has got some good stuff here, as usual.
Yeah, I think with the berm, it sounds like the applicant is willing to work with staff to agree with that. So thank you for bringing that up, Chris. I agree with that. And then in that CBP area, I mean, I support something along the lines of encouraging not having distribution in that CBP, right? The other ones, the larger ones, yes, not in the CBP. Encouraging not having distribution and encouraging multi-tenant uses if feasible, but without actually mandating it and killing the deal for them.
Yeah, this is tough. Good idea, Chris, but I don't see how we're gonna change this and move ahead. If we add verbiage or agree to something different that's on that conceptual plan, what's gonna happen? If we have another hearing, or, I mean, how do we vote on the ordinances, or the resolution, excuse me?
I mean, it's at the discretion of the commission. If the commission wants to add a condition or a consideration to your recommendation, ultimately it will be a policy decision by the city council.
I can make this.
So it's our recommendation to city council, and it's up to them to go from there.
Right,
Okay.
so we can quickly add language, for example, for the developer to work in collaboration with the EDC nonprofit as well as staff in order to encourage mid-sized businesses such as those requiring 100,000 to 500,000 square feet of space. And that can be added into the resolution without having to continue the public hearing to a date specific and continue this process along to the city council.
Yep. Does that satisfy, does that work? Okay, so.
And this is where I say we're gonna go with what our city attorney said. It's like
Yeah.
typical.
Yeah.
She
Ditto.
nails it every time.
Just ignore
Ditto.
her, she's not there,
Ditto.
it's fine.
I can read your minds.
Very good.
Okay, your thoughts, Joe?
I think the compromise is excellent. The verbiage is excellent. That's what we need without interfering the market. I also like your thought about the use of the area instead of pure warehousing. How about semi-assembly, final assembly, manufacturing, production, many other uses where we're going to increase employment, increase local revenue, tax revenues. So it's a win-win for all of us. Yes. So I thank you very much, Commissioner Thomas. Yes.
So just so we're clear, it sounds like we're gonna have a vote to support it, but, and I'm not sure how this will go, we'll do the encouraging word as far as encouraging use of coordinating with staff and limiting it to multi-tenant and 100 to 5,000, and also, but as far as the berm, how does that work? Is it a condition? Is it a what? How does that work?
We could add, as part of your recommendation, a revision to, we could do it two ways. We can modify the exhibit in the specific plan or add a condition on the tentative map resolution that requires berming in areas where there's an interface between the proposed business park and the residential, and we can call out those planning areas that was on that cross-section.
Okay, whatever's the least intrusive, but still has teeth. That's what I'm looking for on that.
And we can add the language, the encouragement language into the recitals of the resolutions.
Okay.
Because again, this is a recommendation to the city council. Thank you.
So moving on then, there are the 5 resolutions for adoption tonight. We'll need a motion and a second to approve based on staff recommendations with the addition of the encouraging language.
Yes, as well as direction to staff to include the berming requirement. And why don't we leave that a little bit open to whether it be a condition or something else that they deem appropriate.
And now that I've worked them pretty hard and scared them over there, I will say that I do like the project. I like the effort you put into design in the park and the way you worked with the amenities. I know those cost money. And if it's going to turn out anything like Audie Murphy, then it will be a very nice project. So I can sleep tonight now.
Okay. So we need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
We need our screens up.
They're up. No. Ours are up.
Your presentation, there it is.
Just give me one moment, please.
Vice Chair Thomas, so just as a clarification, your motion is to adopt staff's recommendation for all 5 resolutions as published in the agenda, including the addition of the recital regarding encouragement, working with staff and the nonprofit, as well as the condition for the berming, which will be included in the documents depending on staff's discretion.
Okay, what's the nonprofit?
Oh, the EDC nonprofit, I'm sorry.
The EDC, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Vice Chair Thomas, you motioned?
Yes.
I'll second.
How come I don't have a voting screen?
Do you want to tell me your vote and I can put it in?
Yes.
Okay. That passes 5-0. Congratulations. As stated, we're not the ultimate deciding body, so the next hurdle is the city council, and I heard they're kind of sticklers, so good luck. I got one of them watching me now, so yeah. So that concludes this portion of our agenda. If you don't want to stick around for the exciting remaining part of our agenda, I'll give you 30 seconds to clear out. Thank you. You did.
Sounds good, thank you.
Can we'll take a 5-minute recess, please.
You guys didn't have any more agenda items, why didn't you just wrap up the meeting?
You know what?
Okay, we're back. It's 8:29. We're back, wrapping this meeting up. Do we have any Community Development Director comments tonight?
I do not, Chair.
Okay, do we have any questions for?
What happened to theater?
No, not tonight. Do we have any commission reports on committee activities?
Yeah. Joe and I went to MCAC yesterday, and we selected the citizen or the volunteer of the year. So you want me to tell you now?
Yeah, who is it?
I can't tell you.
Do you want me to tell you? No, I
Cheryl was
can't.
on pins and needles. Like, what?
Joe, how was that?
Sorry, Cheryl.
Interesting?
Earlier today, we
Oh,
had
today, that's right.
Yeah, we had a meeting, the MCAT meeting, and we selected one final candidate for the Citizen of the Year.
Who is it?
I'm not at liberty
Okay,
to
that's okay.
disclose.
I'm gonna give Cheryl a heart attack. So.
Any future agenda items? I did want to say, I know everyone wants to get out of here, but I did want to say, I met somebody yesterday who, after discussion, he lives in Menifee with his family, and he said they absolutely love it here, and they go to all of the events. They go to Foodie Fridays. They go to everything in the Central Park. They sign their kids up for all the little activities over at Casa Cisneros. They said they couldn't imagine living anywhere else, and I thought that was so cool that I said that's kind of the whole point, and I just thought that was kind of cool, and I wanted to get that on the record. So that being said, it is 8:31, and this meeting is adjourned.